Hello, on behalf of all of us at World Business Chicago, welcome to Conversations with ChiBizHub. This online series is committed to providing you with a platform to help inspire and empower your business through meaningful exchanges with subject matter experts, business resource providers, and others. Today's topic is business reopening and protecting your employees and your business. We are pleased to have a couple of experts who will help discuss tips, advice, and what they're hearing about the reopening of businesses. When you find yourself online looking for information on COVID-19 related grants, loans, and other resources, we invite you to visit our online portal, ChiBizHub.com/COVID-19. It is my pleasure to invite a colleague from ChiBizHub to open today's presentation. Please welcome Jasmine Garcia, Business Resource Manager.
Hello everyone, welcome. ChiBizHub is the city's online portal that links expert service providers to Chicago's small businesses, entrepreneurs, and startups looking to start, grow, or scale their business. In the wake of the coronavirus pandemic, we quickly shifted our work to include conversations like the one today, providing a forum where our business owners, providers can all gather together to get real-time information and have the chance to have all of their questions answered and connect with other small business owners. In sum, we're all in this together. I welcome you to visit our portal at ChiBizHub.com. Check out all of the business resource providers available for your small business to be able to use. It is my pleasure to kick it off to my colleague, Kendra.
Hello, everyone. Again, thank you so much for joining. We are so excited to have some wonderful panelists that will share their expertise today. So we will actually start off by having a panel discussion, and then we will move forward with having a small question and answer section. Thank you again for joining. So I would like to start by introducing our wonderful panelists. So to start today, I want to share a little bit more about Mr. Alberto Ortega. Alberto was born and raised in Chicago, and he has led a mission-driven life committed to engaging communities and businesses to create economic and social impact. Alberto aligned with best-in-class nonprofits and corporations such as Alivio Medical Center in providing access to healthcare for low-income families, leading workforce programs for youth and adults through Instituto del Progreso Latino, serving on the board of directors of La Casa Norte, Chicago's largest provider to homeless youth, and championing diversity and inclusion and community engagement with Sudoku, a global leader in food and facilities management services. Alberto builds on a skill set of 15 plus years of experience in advocacy, business development, diversity and inclusion, external relations, talent acquisition, strategy planning, risk mitigation, government relations, brand promotion, workforce development, and social media marketing. In January of this year, Alberto was appointed by Mayor Lori Lightfoot as the Director of Workforce Strategy and Business Engagement in the Mayor's Office. Alberto is responsible for developing a strategic vision for the City of Chicago's workforce development in coordination with departments and sister city agencies, city partnerships, and other key stakeholders, including the business community. He will oversee the implementation and management of this strategic vision, ensuring coordination across all stakeholders and implementation of opportunities that promote greater innovation, inclusion, and impact in the city's workforce systems to serve more Chicagoans and help those systems adapt to economic changes. Alberto will focus on expanding economic opportunity and financial security for struggling Chicagoans and on enabling inclusive economic growth that ensures all Chicagoans thrive as Chicago thrives. Alberto holds a BA from Loyola University Chicago and an MA from the University of Chicago's School of Social Service Administration. So welcome, Alberto. Thank you so much. And then we have our next panelist, Ms. Jerry Aguilapai. Jerry is the Senior Outreach Manager at Midwest Region and Greater Chicago at the nonprofit 501c3 national organization, Small Business Majority. She leads Small Business Majority's policy, education, workforce, and ecosystem infrastructure efforts in Midwest states. She is also the national manager of women's entrepreneurship programs nationwide. She focuses on ecosystem link, between small businesses, the community, and government to support small business owners and the self-employed, especially women and entrepreneurs of color. She has led small business advocacy with partners in that Illinois was the first to introduce a bill to combat online small business predatory financing that most impacts owners of color, conducted multi-state research on the Affordable Care Act by women business owners, and has created innovative trainings on retirement security and financial readiness for small business. She co-leads the Chicago Inclusive Growth Coalition with Axiom, is a commissioner of the Cook County Social Innovation Commission, and has graduate study in community development finance. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jerry. We greatly appreciate it. So Jasmine and I, we just want to go ahead and we want to jump right in. And before we start to really, get into a lot of the conversation, we want to just have you share a little bit about yourself, your role and responsibilities at the City of Chicago and the Small Business Majority. Alberto, would you mind starting for us?
Could you hear me? Yes, yes. Can you hear me? That is strange. How about now? Can you hear me?
So Alberto, we're having a little difficulty making out your voice. Give us a second, if you don't mind. We're going to have Jerry go ahead and start. It's just an echo. Sorry about that.
Hi, do you want me to, I think Alberto may be back on or okay. Sure. Okay, sure, I can start. Can we show this slide deck, please, so I can give a little bit of background about Small Business Majority so people understand our organization? Hi, so I just wanted to give a little bit of quick background introduction about who we are as a nonprofit organization. We are an education and advocacy organization founded and run by small business owners. Established back in 2005. We are national, but we have regional offices across the country. I lead the Midwest region, most especially focused on Illinois and Greater Chicago, but also Wisconsin and Northwest Indiana and the other Midwest states. As necessary on the issues that we deal with, especially during COVID, in this pandemic. We focus on the issues of top importance to small business owners in terms of the education that we provide, the training as an ecosystem partner to support our partners in the city of Chicago, such as the neighborhood business development centers, the organizations and business service organizations affiliated with ChiBizHub, which is a wonderful resource to find services, and other organizations such as Small Business Development Centers and the Women's Business Center. You're probably wondering, well, what issues are you focused on? And what do you define as small businesses? Well, our definition is somebody who owns a business with under 100 employees, and also the self-employed. The education that we provide and the training, and also the policy research that we conduct, as well as what we advocate on, are on the issues that we've conducted scientific research, the most importance that owners have indicated to them. Access to capital being one of them, healthcare and affordability of access to healthcare, not only for owners, but their families and especially their employees too, because many owners look at their employees as a second family because they're work family. Entrepreneurship capacity, taxes, and more. Retirement security is a large one. predatory lending as well. And what we as an organization do is not just create trainings that complement what our partners offer for direct services and technical assistance, is that we also are engaged in policy research. And that's what drives what our platform agenda is. Because we are a 501c3 nonprofit rather than a membership organization, that allows us to be unbiased partners with groups like ChiBizHub, but it also helps us on that advocacy end to be friendly on both sides of the aisle while not having a member-driven agenda. Our online resource hub is located at venturize.org. Originally, that was seeded with our partners at Opportunity Finance Network, the Association for Community Development Financial Institutions. We assumed the role of managing venturize.org, built it up. So it's actually a great online hub as you are looking through ChiBizHub to see what business service organizations you'd like to work with. Just remember that venturize.org is a source for you to also learn about issues that you may not have the time for when you visit. A counselor has a wonderful checklist on there on how to get loan ready. There's a tip sheet on how to avoid predatory lending, especially at this time during COVID. We are one of the original founding organizations, the only one actually that represents small business owners on the National Responsible Business Lending Coalition as well. So we want you to know that that is an online resource for you. And there are several other business service organizations that are part of venturize.org. That is a national hub, actually, so it's not just Chicago specific. So should you ever, one day when we're not in COVID, hop a plane to LA, you can visit our offices there, but also you can find resources across the states and territories of the U.S. At venturize.org. Next slide. This is just a model of what we as a nonprofit have for our business model. Again, we engage in research, advocacy, education, but also networking for the business owners to connect with one another, to also connect with policymakers, as I've frequently engaged in since March during COVID, and just earlier this afternoon, connecting a business owner with policymakers on the Hill, and also networking with other business service organizations. Oftentimes, we will get business owners ask where can they go to for assistance. We refer them, of course, to ChiBizHub, but many of you like to go local as well. And ChiBizHub is a great place to find that locally based neighborhood service for your business, where you can get most often free and no cost or low cost assistance. If you are looking to join our organization, again, we're not a membership organization, so you can simply sign up for our newsletter at smallbusinessmajority.org on the website. There's a free newsletter sign up. Next slide. Again, this is just where you can sign up for our daily updates. At this time, we understand that many business owners need to pivot or reassess what their business model is. We do have a platform on our website where you can find out not only the daily training updates that we offer nationally with groups like SBA and SCORE and such, but you can also find out what the current policies are being debated congressionally and at a federal level that's going to be impacting you. For instance, everybody knows about the PPP loan funds and such. There's a lot of chatter that happens with them. We know this is constantly changing. At this website, because we have physical offices in DC and staff there, we're in constant contact about what the timely updates are regarding federal processes, but also any policies that may be happening, for instance, affording more set-asides for minority businesses during recovery and such. So this is our website on here. Next slide. And of course, venturize.org, which I mentioned before. You can find tools and independent learning on there as you do work with one of the business service organizations that you can find on ChiBizHub. We know that many of you also probably have additional jobs as you try to grow your business. So this is another resource for you that is free, and it's open to the public to access free resources as you are working with one of our partners in a business service organization. Next slide. I know that this is a difficult time for many businesses, small businesses. Due to the pandemic, many have had to shift their business model, looking at new ways to replace the revenue that's been lost. Many are also operating at 10 to 20% of their normal revenues in certain industries, such as retail or food business. But we also know that what we're hearing across our offices and in talking to small business owners, that access to capital is necessary, whether it be through no-cost loans or through grants. We have been advocating for over a $650 billion bailout for small businesses through direct grants, or no interest loans. And we're, again, in constant contact with policymakers on how we can continuously improve the current federal funding of the PPP or the EIDL loan programs. We also need you to share your stories. As I mentioned, I just this afternoon was talking with a business owner looking to make sure that they would like to tell their story to congressional policymakers who are looking for that. So do sign on to our campaign if you're interested. They can always hear from me, but quite honestly, and they can hear from Jasmine and they can hear from Kendra, but it's so much more compelling to hear your voices as small business owners and the actual stories in order for us to really advance a policy that's equitable for Main Street small businesses. Next slide. And then this is just some of our questions, and we can distribute this afterwards, just some websites where you could go to that we have online. And again, we're national, so if you see a training that you like in California, which we have much trainings, especially geared for Spanish translations as well, you of course are welcome to participate in it. Many of our partners here, such as Little Village Chamber and such, they help promote that too. And it also helps to expand the resources that you have to educate yourself on what's happening with funding and other policies in regards to the pandemic and impacting small businesses. So thank you. And thanks, Caroline, for the slides.
Thank you, Jerry. I think we're having tech difficulties with Alberto's camera, but he is still on, so I'm pretty sure he's able to tackle the next question, or the same question.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Although you cannot see me visually, you can hear me auditorily. Happy to be on the call. Thank you to ChiBizHub, World Business Chicago. I started, per the introduction, with the mayor's office in early January. Began to get settled in, and then COVID hit. My primary mandate is to help create alignment within the workforce ecosystem. The workforce ecosystem in Chicago is set up to help, in essence, people find work, prepare to get work, so job training, and then also to help match employers to job-ready candidates, right? Commonly referenced to as a pipeline of talent. And so within that ecosystem, we have a number of stakeholders that are funded with public tax dollars, and they take the form of community-based organizations, commonly referred to workforce development service providers.
Alberto, are you still there? Okay, we apologize. Alberto is still experiencing a few technical difficulties. So we are going to move forward with the next question, Jerry. So just thank you very much for your patience. And then once Alberto joins, we'll have him just go ahead and start with the next question.
For the next question, while we wait on Alberto, Jerry, we were interested, both of you are heavily involved in the community. And we want to know, what are you hearing from the small, medium-sized businesses in your sphere of influence? How are you feeling in the current phase 4? And what are their challenges? What are their opportunities? And what has been their feedback just overall?
Some of the things that we've been hearing about, from small businesses, small and medium businesses, is that, of course, capital is an ongoing issue. Many of them, their cash flow has been decimated. Their revenues have been bombarded, literally, and they're operating in very lean net or negative net profit. So that access to capital is extremely important for them to have. Given that we are moving into, the third month, is it now, of the pandemic, and that we are still in literally what the experts are still saying, we're still in the first phase. We need to consider that many of them have mounting debts that they need to service. They are trying to negotiate some of their debts in terms of property and leases and such, but keep in mind, in terms of the flow and the chain of supplies, some of their own suppliers may be small businesses themselves who may need to get paid too. So there's a certain, limit to which you can negotiate before you need to start paying some minimum, unless there's abatement in terms of property and such. So there's that capital piece to it that owners are very concerned about. Second is part of that is to the capital piece is that many of them have extended their line of credit in order to pay debts or pay their employees. In doing so, or in terms of taking on a loan, that's affected their personal credit. So credit is it's a determining factor, quite frankly, for many small business owners, most especially for owners of color who may not have much in equity in their business to begin with, or wealth to cover expenses. Credit is a key determining factor as to how many of these small business owners can access that additional capital. So I actually have to laud the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois and even the county for the work that they've done to provide grant assistance and no interest loans for these small business owners. It's a great effort. We as a nonprofit and as an organization would like to see the federal government step in to do more, because we also know that our philanthropic funders have also been asked to help out as well and support many of us in the ecosystem in order to help small business owners. So there's the capital piece, and then there is the safety piece as well for small business owners. Many are concerned about the access to PPE. I think it's wonderful that the mayor's office had this new partnership with Read so that small businesses can go on a marketplace website and they don't need to worry about looking out for themselves of being gouged and price gouging. However, again, many of these businesses, when you're considering it from an equity lens on the south and west sides, we're already operating on very lean profit margins to begin with. Many of them, these business owners, are also considered low and moderate income. And, for instance, although they may have a storefront, they may also be on Medicaid or on SNAP as well. So it's this understanding of how there is a social safety net for entrepreneurs in the ecosystem in order for them to thrive. Given that, even though there's a marketplace for affordable PPE now, there is, again, it goes back to the capital piece of having the funds to pay for PPE. Now that the mayor and really appreciate it has tried to address affordability and price gouging, there's still, again, the impact of where can they get the funds, and then there's the supply side of the PPE. If we have another surge, one, those small businesses may close down again, and we move back from phase 4 into phase 3. That uncertainty has been expressed, and what would that mean in terms of revenue? And then for those businesses that may be able to still operate if we were to, move back in phase 3, which is, let's be honest, that could be a reality. Would they have access to that PPE because of the supply as well? So safety is a concern on a supplies and demand side and cost, but it's also a concern in regards to the neighborhood small business owners to which some of the money of the guidelines put forth by the state, by IDPH, CDPH, CCDPH may not be getting to those business owners who aren't connected through ChiBizHub, and understanding that BACP offers many of the workshops about what you need to do to operate in a safe environment, not only for your employees, but for customers as well. So safety for their employees is a concern with our partners, that it's not getting down to the hyperlocal businesses at that level in the neighborhoods. But then there's the safety concerns of the business owners, that if in their neighborhood there is already a high rate of cases and infections reported, despite the fact that there is testing, there is an uncertainty and there is a fear that somebody may be infected and come into their business, and that may spread to others who come inside as well. And so it's very important for these business owners to understand that the city is doing, in my opinion, a wonderful job addressing safety concerns. But the challenge is allaying their fears about their own community, doing business with customers who patronize their business, who they themselves, the larger community, may not be aware of how to, what measures to enact to be in place. So a business owner may say you must wear a mask is fine, but that customer may easily take off their mask and go into Kendra bookstore and not wear a mask and such, and may be an asymptomatic carrier. So I think the uncertainty is an anxious point for many small business owners. And then there is, of course, pivoting their business to new models. Many of them, like us today, have been forced to move their business model online and have to learn new ways and ramp up rather quickly. So there's that concern. Fifth, going back to the capital piece, should they get funding to hire employees again? Understand that many of the smaller businesses with under 25 employees, especially micro businesses with 3, 8 employees that have under 10, the business owner was also the person who trained and onboarded them. So if a business is operating and an employee doesn't want to come back out of safety, understandable, but they may have taken out a PPP loan on top of knowing that they are trying to employ people to continue operating. You have to understand that business owner also has to onboard any new staff and train them in order to continue operating. So that is, on a workforce level, an additional burden for the small business owner who may not have a dedicated HR person, and most small business owners don't. It's much easier for the larger businesses with over 25, 60 employees, as I spoke one today, because they'll have that capacity in-house for others to help train and onboard a newer employee.
Thank you so much for sharing. And it's so ironic you should mention about a lot of businesses moving toward e-commerce. We did actually have a webinar a few months ago that referenced a lot of that. So I know that a lot of people are looking into that option, definitely. So Jerry, we want to definitely just hear from you about what is some advice that you would have for employers or employees during these times on how to protect themselves at work as the city continues to reopen? I know you made reference to the mask situation, and that's a real situation, but what advice can you give?
I think, it's important to communicate en masse through social media and our websites and with partners that there is guidance for the small business owners and their employees on protective measures, and that quite honestly, without science and data, it is going to be very difficult to make any commercial or economic decisions unless we understand that public health is a partner in making sure that economic recovery happens for small and medium-sized businesses. So I think some of that advice is to not just look at the headlines, and many of them, of course, may be feeling pressure from, the outlier business owner who wants to open, because they need to make revenue. Everybody understands the need to make revenue. But at the same time, there is a balance of safety and containment of the virus so that your own community in which you operate continues to be safe and you could continue doing business with them. And so I think the advice there again is to really look to the stalwarts and the data and the recommendations by the city and the health department. Not look to, but this happens a lot. A lot of business owners will talk to one another and their peers if they want to know something, because it's much easier and it's a trusted source. So if Jasmine's my colleague who owns a cafe down the street, I'll be like, Jasmine, what do you know about this? But if Jasmine only gets part of that story correct and part of those facts correct, I may not be operating my bookstore the same way. Now we have two bookstores. So absolutely, we want to encourage peer networking, but when it comes to safety, it's very important that business owners refer to the guidelines by our public health officials in order to make wise economic decisions for their community and for their employees and for themselves. That way we can all, especially the businesses in the neighborhood corridors, can continue to operate at some level of doing business and still try to attempt to make revenue and break even or attempt to make sure people are employed.
Thank you, Jerry. That was all incredibly informational. I want to apologize to everyone for the technical difficulties we've been having and appreciate your patience. Alberto is still on the line. He has called in, and so I want to make sure to give him the opportunity to finish giving his introduction, and then also just give us a little bit of feedback of what he has heard working with the city of Chicago and what he's heard from the businesses in that angle, and any feedback.
Thank you, Jasmine. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. You're good.
Perfect. Just want to make sure. Yeah, so just in terms of a real quick recap of my work within the mayor's office, I am mandated to help create alignment between stakeholders and what we refer to a workforce ecosystem. And so within that ecosystem, you have nonprofits, employers, and publicly funded institutions. So these nonprofit partners are community-based organizations which receive grant money, right? Private donations, our tax dollars in essence, to help people find work, to help employers find people who can do that work, and also connect the institutions that provide those funding streams and resources so that we could have this interconnected ecosystem, right? To help stabilize not only our communities, but also individuals, families, and our great city, Chicago. In addition to that, I often field requests from companies, small, medium, and large, with reference to their interest in trying to find top talent in Chicago. And so I will often work with a team of people throughout the city of Chicago to assemble a rapid response team, right? And to ensure that employers find, get, and retain and grow talent. So that in a nutshell is what my purview is with regard to my work within the mayor's office. I enjoy getting out as well into the community. For instance, this Friday, I'll be conducting field visits to Revolution Workshop, a pre-apprenticeship jobs program, as well as meeting with Green Corps, a job training program within the Chicago Department of Transportation. And I do that to make sure I stay close to the ground, right? Often, you can work downtown, but it's very, very important to get out into the community, to listen to the folks who are helping individuals in search of employment, who are actually vested in developing their skill sets so that they can become attractive and competitive in this type job market. Thank you.
Thank you, Alberto. I want to go ahead and make sure we cover this question in the beginning, just because, it's really relevant to the conversation. But, as everyone knows, the state of Illinois and Chicago moved into phase 4 of reopening not too long ago. And for everyone watching who would like to access industry-specific guidelines for Phase 4, we recommend you visit the City of Chicago's website at chicago.gov/reopening-business-portal.html. In the spirit of this, Alberto, what can you tell us about Phase 4 specifically? What, in your opinion, are the changes or elements that Chicago residents and business owners should be most aware of?
Great. Thank you, Jasmine. And so just to provide an overview, we're now in Phase 4, as Jasmine has highlighted. There are a total of 5 phases. So if you're not familiar with these phases, highly encourage you to go to the website, chicago.gov, and then search and navigate and find the framework for reopening Chicago. So, going back to Phase 1, that's when we all remember we were requested, nudged to stay at home. And the goal was to limit interactions to rapidly slow the spread of COVID-19. Then we had Phase 2, right? From strict stay at home to stay at home. The purpose there was to continue to flatten the curve while safely being outside. And then Phase 3, we cautiously reopened, right? Some businesses, you may recall, opened up, but they practiced strict social distancing with some other parameters. And now Phase 4, the goal is to further, right, reopen Chicago while ensuring the safety of residents. There's a huge emphasis on PPE. So if you don't have PPE, there's a PPE market. Again, you can go to the city or chicago.gov website to be able to access PPE. And this is a critical point here. We're all familiar with the articles in the Times, the Wall Street Journal, or the Trib, or the Sun Times, whatever your preference, right? They talk about consumers, right? And consumer spending. Consumer spending is drastically taking a dive, and that relates to fears around COVID. So if what I'm hearing from small and medium-sized businesses as well as large companies is that if you can do whatever you can to ensure confidence, instill confidence in consumers, the best way to do that is to buy PPE, go through the self-certification process. Again, information is on the chicago.gov website. But the more you can do to create a safe work environment, right, workplace for your workers, first and foremost, and then for your consumers, you're going to do great in terms of instilling confidence. So that when you do instill that confidence and it increases, you're going to presumably, right, foreseeably see an influx of customers coming into your venues and buying your products and or services. So what am I talking about here? Protective shields, hand sanitizer, face coverings. You want to protect your people, right, first and foremost, and do it in a way where people will then know, wow, ABC business is doing a great job of wiping the door handles down, the counters down, regularly, sanitizing washrooms rather, every 15 minutes, right, instead of every hour, or maybe it's every 30 minutes. The more you can do, again, to instill confidence, the better, not only for your business, but the better we all will be off in the city. Thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you, Alberto. We appreciate that. We're glad you're able to rejoin us. So I want to just really talk about, since the pandemic or since the beginning, I know a lot of this really started during the month of March. We have seen an uptick in mental and emotional health concerns. So what are your respective organizations doing to help employees with their mental and emotional needs at this time? Jerry, can you share with us?
Hi, sorry, Kendra, you cut out for a minute there. I wasn't sure if you had anything to add, but I think.
Sorry about that. Can you share a little bit about what Small Business Majority may be doing to help with mental and emotional health during this time?
Yeah, what Small Business Majority is doing, again, we're a national organization, is that we've been listening to, have listening sessions with many of our partners, as well as small business owners, because trauma-informed care is most especially needed and looks different for business owners, small business owners, and most especially Black-owned business owners as well, than it would for others. And the mental wellness needs are far different for small business owners than it is for a non-entrepreneur. Part of what we've been doing is listening. For instance, we had a session immediately in the wake of the protests and demonstrations with Black-owned small business owners. And I know many of our partners on the South and West sides have been convening focus groups and check-ins with small business owners, not only on pivoting their business or addressing their business needs, but it's also a form of peer support that provides some mental wellness and stability at this time. As an organization, we've acknowledged this, and we are actually in the process of launching a resiliency series nationally and in our regions to address not only trauma-informed care, but also some of the other issues that we've touched upon and that you've heard Alberto say as well on PPE. These are just fluid issues, but they constantly are the same themes that we are hearing since March. So we are looking to invite some experts on that. We've held actually mental and financial wellness trainings before. SBM was I believe we developed one of the first ones on financial capacity and mental wellness a couple of years ago, which launched in the western suburbs, knowing that mental stress keeps up majority of people most of the time from financial anxiety, but nobody talks about it. So imagine during pre-pandemic, when we held these trainings, people were hesitant to talk about financial stress and anxiety. And by virtue of this pandemic, it's become natural now to talk more about the anxiety and stress from financial decision making and the negative impacts on your business. So we are going to continue addressing what that means from a capital standpoint, but also since healthcare is actually it's our flagship issue on policy. When we were established 15 years ago, we have strong ties with organizations nationally and locally with various health departments and groups like NAMI and funders and organizations to support individuals. I think what's most important, though, is from an equity lens to understand that the needs of owners of color in particular are more unique when you consider the decades of disinvestment in certain areas like the South and West sides of Chicago, what that does to an individual from a broad perspective in terms of generational trauma and the stress from financial want and need, knowing that Black male with a college degree is going to have the equivalent of wealth of a white male high school person with a high school degree as well. This is really incredibly important, why the needs have been expressed by Black entrepreneurs in terms of mental wellness are more unique and more necessary to address for Black entrepreneurs when you give the context of the disinvestment over decades in Chicago. So we've acknowledged it. We started talking about financial resiliency and capital, a couple of years ago, and we're going to continue expanding upon that.
Thank you, Jerry. I know Kendra and I are just incredibly, just grateful that, one, the small business majority has this in mind, right? That you're approaching all of your work with all of this in mind, because there's not a lot of organizations that are doing that. And to be vocal about it, too, is just yet another level. Alberto, would you mind chiming into this with regards to what the city is doing?
There are 5, right, specific to Chicago. This is in addition to federally qualified health centers that may receive funds from CDPH. But in essence, we have 5 dedicated CDPH mental health centers that provide services from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. These services include therapy by telephone, telephonic psychiatry, in-person services for injections and case-by-case special needs. So these services are provided for patients who have unique vulnerabilities or clinical needs that require an in-person visit. So again, we have 5 of those centers. I'll briefly just name those. Englewood Mental Health Center, right? The Greater Grand Mental Health Center, the Greater Lawn Mental Health Center over on Cottage Grove, the Lawndale Mental Health Center in North Lawndale, and then the North River Mental Health Center over on 5800 North Pulaski. So these mental health services are available to the City of Chicago residents. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Alberto. Appreciate it. For our next question, I'd like to cover, for both of you, and we can go ahead and start off with Jerry, please. Can you share any advice you have for our small business owners who are looking to ensure that their employees are safe, both physically and mentally?
I think some of the resources that Alberto just noted is one of the ways that small business owners could support their employees physically and mentally. One of the things also, and we do this every year nationally as an organization and locally, is as the fall draws near, is to make people aware about health insurance time to renew, remind people about recertifying for their Medicaid as well, knowing that many of their employees, some of them had to furlough them or lay them off. And again, as I said earlier, they see their employees as a second family because they're their work family. So it's not unusual for me and our partners to hear that they're very grateful for some of the resources that the city has provided, and our partners such as the Chicago Lawyers Committee on Civil Rights on what tip sheets, for example, on how to access unemployment. That's one way to support people, is to make sure those resources are also being distributed to small business owners so that they can share that with their employees. The tip sheet on unemployment that the Chicago Committee for Lawyers and Civil Rights created, I shared that, and there were an incredible amount of people who were saying, where did you get that? Because I want to share that with business owners too. So it isn't, I think business owners care about their employees. So to the best of our ability that we could provide them as the ecosystem supporters for these small business owners with that information, that would be great. Again, also the 5 FQHCs that Alberto noted, but there's also the network of FQHCs throughout the city of Chicago through Access Family Healthcare Center, Erie Family Healthcare Centers as well. I have to say, the FQHCs are a wonderful source for getting healthcare, even if you are not able to afford it at this time. I believe we need to support the visibility of those FQHCs more. There's also a network of free legal clinics as well, in addition to the FQHCs. Too. And so that's one way to support their employees at this time for both their physical and mental health needs. And it's also making sure that to the best of our ability, could we find support for them that is local in their neighborhood for many of these owners and their employees as well, rather than, trying to see if, especially for mental wellness, trying to find a counselor who looks like them. At this time, it's been expressed by owners. There's a need there to have somebody listen to them and visually have them look like them. And I know that there's, of course, going back to Alberto, there's a shortage of mental wellness professionals out there. So to the best of our ability, what can we do in the social safety net for entrepreneurship? In that small business ecosystem that we work with you at World Business Chicago, but then there's that ecosystem of workforce development that Alberto works on, which is what can we also do to build that up so that it also supports the small business owners in these underserved areas and their employees who they provide jobs for as well, who may have been furloughed or laid off.
Alberto, might you be able to chime in on this one too, please?
Definitely, Jerry. I'm so glad that you underscored and lifted up into this discussion the importance of the community health network in Chicago. So when we think about healthcare, mental health, we think of the big name hospitals, right? Advocate, Rush, great, UFC. But we have these gems that are located throughout the city and the surrounding suburbs called federally qualified health centers, right? That's the federal designation, FQHCs, or also commonly referred to as community health centers. I used to work for one, Erie Family Health Center. Fantastic organization led by Dr. Lee Francis. The point here is that these community health centers are actually on par in terms of the quality of care they provide, whether it's primary care, mental health, behavioral health, peds, right? It's fantastic. And they're also connected with the big hospital systems like the Advocates of the world, the Rushes of the world, right? Just highlighting Erie. Erie happens to be Erie Family Health Center, the largest in terms of being able to provide prenatal health care. They help give birth to the most babies. I think 1,000 babies a year, right, for the state of Illinois, and they're based here in Chicago. So again, please use these resources. The city does fund mental health in addition to directly, right, through these 5 mental health centers. The city has made a concerted effort. This doesn't get talked about, but they made huge grants to support the provision of mental health through these community health centers like Alivio Medical Center, right? Esperanza Health Center, right? Mount Sinai, right? Access Community Health Network, right? Which is co-located with Mount Sinai. So just, thank you, Jerry, for underscoring the points of that. Going back to businesses, confidence is key, right? Go to the chicago.gov website. There are tons of resources for you to learn about how you become self-certified. The more you can do visually to convey, right, to both your workforce and your consumers that you actually care and actually open your bolsillos, your pockets, to invest in the purchase of PPE, so mask, hand sanitizer. Your budgets are going to increase. We get it, right? That's why you have customers, okay? But the point is, you have to make these investments because the more you invest in making your customers, but let me back up, making your workforce feel comfortable, right? The better. And here's an example, right? Walking into City Hall, everyone gets temperature checked, right? There's this machine. There's also these hand temp checkers. Everyone gets checked. If you're abnormal, it would probably be referred to get tested for COVID. But the point here is that the city is doing that to ensure and instill confidence. The place, right? The city of Chicago is a safe place to do business. You can come to the city clerk and get your permits, get your licenses, right? Wear a mask, right? That's visual, okay? You have signs all over the place. Wear your mask, protect, yourself and protect others. Again, I go back to the employers. Invest in your workforce, and then in turn, you will help consumers feel more confident and comfortable in wanting to go into your venue. Versus if you don't do that now and make those investments, we've all walked to these places of business, whether big or small, people are not wearing their mask. I don't feel comfortable. People are not. You don't see the shopping carts being wiped down. They should be, right? Speak up. If you see something that you don't feel comfortable with, speak up. But again, going back to the business owners, make the investments, be visual, get self-certified, get your Be Safe Chicago badging so everyone in the community and the city can see it so that they can walk in your place of business and purchase your products and services, enabling you to pay your workers and also enabling you to provide for your families and stabilize our communities in our great city of Chicago. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Alberto. Thank you, Jerry. That was incredible information, relevant, obviously, to where the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois is at, and I know our small business community and ecosystem really appreciates it. We're going to go ahead and close out, but we really appreciate you and your time and for joining us today. I want to, thank everyone for joining us, our audience. I want to remind you that a recording of today's conversation, along with others, are featured on our social media and our special COVID-19 support resource page, ChiBizHub.com/COVID-19 COVID-19 support. We encourage you all to follow us on social media for links to future webinars, grants, and any additional information that you may need to better run your business during these challenging times. On behalf of everyone at World Business Chicago and ChiBizHub, we wish you and yours good health and peace of mind. Thank you for joining us.